Hi, everyone. We got a great reminder in the news today that we have to watch our words. We have to watch the words we use as people, but particularly as journalists. We can easily report something factually true, but also fail to report accurately by choosing different words or not choosing to use certain words at all. And we have a great example of this today in our news cycle. And we're going to take a moment just to do what we call a smarter take. So we have the headline. I want to talk to you about it, but then I want to talk to you a little bit about how this headline is being reported around the world. So the news today is of an attack on an Iranian consulate in Syria. Reports suggest Israel is behind this attack. Israel has not taken responsibility as of this recording, but that could change. Iran says the attack killed high ranking officers in their military, and other reports are indicating that these officers particularly belong to Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, an important part of their national defense. So let's pause there for a second. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, as is often referred to or written, is designated a foreign terrorist organization by the United States of America. So Iran considers the victims of this attack high ranking military leaders. But it's also true to report that these high ranking military leaders, in other cases, could be referred to as leaders of a terrorist organization or terrorists themselves. But you likely won't see the term terrorist or terrorism used very often, if at all, related to this story. And I wanted to talk to you about why. So, this has to do in part with a decision by the Associated Press. The Associated Press is one of the largest news organizations in the entire world. It avoids using the term terrorist or terrorism. And that decision was made several decades ago in the 1990s. It still remains to this day. And periodically, the Associated Press, because of a news cycle, for example, a terrorist attack that took place in Israel, will have to come out and explain why they're choosing to use certain words and not to use others. But the Associated Press official guidance, according to their style book, which is easily accessible, and by the way, their style book is often followed by news organizations around the world. This style book says this: the terms terrorism and terrorists have become politicized and often are applied inconsistently. This is their argument for not using them very much. The terms terrorism and terrorists have become politicized and often are applied inconsistently. Politicized and inconsistent. Now, every news organization has to make their own editorial judgment. But because of the size of the Associated Press, because of its reach, the decisions that the Associated Press makes, others will likely follow. In fact, in some cases for Smarter News, we will follow a decision made by the Associated Press because it serves almost as an industry standard, of a variety of different things, whether it's a call on grammar or spelling or something as simple as that. But there's also other guidance or other styles or editorial judgments that are made by the Associated Press that others will follow as well. But when I see a line written by the Associated Press like this is a quote, Iran provides money and weapons to Hezbollah as well as Hamas and other Palestinian militant groups fighting Israel and Gaza. I see that and I think to myself as a journalist, that's a really important line, but it's missing context because it's missing the word terrorism and terrorists. And let me explain. So Hamas was designated a foreign terrorist organization by the United States government in 1997. Hezbollah was designated a foreign terrorist organization in 1997 as well. Iran's military branch, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, was designated a foreign terrorist organization in 2019. This is the same list that Al Qaeda is on, Boko Haram is on. This is a list of foreign terrorist organizations designated in that particular way by the US State Department. The Houthis, because you're going to hear their name often related to this conflict that we're covering, the Houthis have also been designated a terrorist group, albeit a slightly different designation, but it doesn't change the fact that the US government has decided to also designate them a terrorist group. So, what do these groups have in common besides this very specific foreign terrorist organization designation? They are all supported by Iran, as the Associated Press was just reporting. But the Associated Press left out that Iran is one of only 4 countries in the entire world that America has designated a state sponsor of terrorism, meaning that the country has repeatedly provided support for acts of international terrorism. This designation for Iran goes back to 1984. And just in case you're curious, the other countries on this list, the very few that the United States has designated state sponsors of terrorism, include North Korea, Syria, Cuba, and Iran. So just think about this for a second. Despite all the disagreements in the United States government over the last several decades, and there's been a lot of disagreements, despite all the different leadership that we've seen, the groups that I've mentioned, as well as the state sponsors of terrorism, have remained. They have not changed dramatically. In the case of the Houthis, that's changed. But for Hamas, Hezbollah, the IRGC, Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism, these have not changed significantly. So while the AP calls the term terrorist or terrorism a politicized term or a term that is being applied inconsistently, the decades of these designations or the years present a counter argument that the term is actually apolitical and consistent, at least when it comes to the United States government. And this is why at Smarter News, I will say, even though it doesn't easily roll off the tongue, that a group is a US designated terrorist organization. On first reference, I will often mention that. And then on second or third reference, I'll refer to them as a terrorist group. And I do that because I don't like the term militant, which is what the Associated Press uses. I think in an effort to try to generalize, to try to be less political or be more consistent, that unfortunately editorializes the content further. I think it actually does the opposite. I think when something is too vague and not well sourced, it does more damage. What makes someone a militant? Let me ask you that question. If you carry a weapon, are you a militant? If you don't carry a weapon, are you not a militant? Does militant thinking make you a militant? Do you need to wear a uniform or march in step to be a militant? Do you need to belong to a military-like group? What about a military-like group that physically attacks or murders people for a cause or an ideology? That sounds a little bit like a terrorist group, but is that a militant group? So where do you draw the line? The Associated Press uses the term militant to describe Hamas, in keeping, they say, with Webster's New World College Dictionary definition, ready and willing to fight. Well, a lot of people arguably are ready and willing to fight for a cause. And a lot of those people may not want to kill or injure other people or belong to a terrorist group, but they feel passionately about a topic and they're ready and willing to fight for that. So you see how this generic label casts a really wide net that collects everybody. And I don't think that's fair. I also don't think it's accurate. It's why we will not use it at Smarter News. It's why when a group is designated a foreign terrorist organization, we will make sure that we source that for you. And then I will use that term because I don't want to collect extra people that don't actually believe particularly in that group. An Associated Press editor recently said this, quote, different people will disagree about who is a terrorist and who is not. This isn't part of their defense to not use the term. And that's certainly true. I, like you, have likely heard plenty of criticisms about the United States government, either officially, casual conversation from other world leaders. Absolutely. But I can report about a terror group, naming them as they are designated, and also report criticisms about the United States of America. I can actually just do both, and it's important to. I can actually quote the Ayatollah of Iran speaking critically about America and also mention to you that Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism as designated by the US government and has been for several decades. I can do both of those things. They can be done at the same time. And I think it's important to because the words that we use really impact our frame of mind. If I said a terrorist was killed or a militant is killed or a general was killed, these bring up different images. A military general, a militant, and a terrorist might look different in your mind. And yes, there's different perspectives. So if there's these different perspectives and different descriptions, the best thing I can do is to present them all to you so that you can see them all in front of you as you're trying to think about what's happening in the world that we're living in. For just a moment, let me just take this a little closer to home because we're talking a lot about the Middle East, but it doesn't just stop there. We can actually apply what we're talking about and the importance of words in a scenario that could hit a little closer to home. So let's say someone in your family was unfortunately a victim of a crime, was hurt by a gang member, or was hurt by a member of the mafia. What if the press called the gang member or the mafia member a career criminal affiliated with a larger group? So, what did the press refer to this person as a career criminal affiliated with a larger group, but not as a mafia member? As someone close to the crime, that may not feel right. And both things could be true, but both things cannot be completely accurate. We want to make sure that we're doing the best to present the most accurate picture to you. So let's take the stories back to the Middle East. If we eliminate the term terrorist completely, are we being accurate in reporting the story that we're reporting today or other stories that have to do with the region? Are we actually helping those most in need by using these generic or general terms? Is this helpful or is this hurtful? That's a decision that you get to make. I just want to share some of our thoughts at Smarter News on it. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the IRGC, they're all designated terrorist groups. They're all supported by Iran, a U.S. designated state sponsor of terrorism. Even just one sentence adds context that really matters. And even if you make different decisions in the broader piece, even that just one little asterisk at the end really, really matters. So watch for this in the reporting as it's evolving out of the Middle East this week and otherwise. Watch for when you see the word terrorist and when you don't. It's a really interesting experiment. And now that you have a little bit background, I think you might notice it a little bit more. And I'm really curious your thoughts on it. What do you think about journalists reporting something factually true, but also failing to report accurately? And how do you think we can all do better so that we can more accurately understand the world that we're sharing right now? I really look forward to your thoughts. You can email us hello@smarternews.com. And for more quick, concise, nonpartisan information, you can visit us always at smarternews.com. I look forward to your thoughts, your insights, your perspectives, and I appreciate taking this time to provide a smarter take on this news story. I'll see you soon on smarternews.com. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Quick, concise, nonpartisan, Smarter News, a refuge from the storm. I'm Jenna. Thank you for choosing Smarter.